And, you know, sometimes through my parenting journey, I succeeded at sticking to the values of authenticity, connection, and wholeness, but sometimes I didn't. And this is, at the Integer, we also believe that in life we make mistakes and restoration can happen, and that contributes to healthy growth. So this is why Nathaniel and Malan and I are going to model an authentic reflection about our journey through their teenage years. Okay, so we did discuss beforehand. I gave them the values, and we did talk about one or two situations, but we really didn't rehearse this and practice something. We are just going to have a discussion, and hopefully the discussion will just flow about scenarios they can remember where these three values were adhered to well, and scenarios where maybe not. And hopefully we can all learn something from that. And afterwards, I will give an opportunity if anybody wants to ask questions or take part in the discussion. Okay.
Yeah, I think if I can just say, like, I know that there are parents in this space that do have teenagers at the moment. So if you do have any questions, I can't speak on behalf of Malan, but I think it's an odd occurrence to have people that have come out of teenage years and just be like, vra my vra, like, question, if you want any questions, go for it. But please, this is, yeah, I think that this is a space where this could possibly happen. And not that we have like succeeded in teenagehood, if that's even a thing. Yeah.
Nathaniel, maybe you could just also introduce yourself and say what type of shape, if you have to describe your shape, because I think that's also a point we want to make, is to say your shape and Malan's shape are very different.
Yeah, Malan se kop skud. Yeah, so I am, or I was at least, your typical color in between the lines, don't walk outside of the rules, try and comply as much as I can, type of child. So any, even a teenager, any type of form of discipline or reprimanding me would immediately like catapult me into a space of shame, because I never do bad things. Like I don't try my best to not do things that are so yeah. So I was more binne die lyne, like inside the lines type of girl. I did choir, I did maths, you know, typical, what one would call a good teenager. Yeah, easy teenager. But yeah, I don't think that means, I don't think my shape necessarily was that initially. I think that a big part of it was constructed by various social ideas. So I think, yeah, Malan, Miskin, maybe you can jump in.
Yeah, I didn't know there were lines. So no, Nat said she was very kind of, you know, do things right and well, and me not as much. I mean, I got expelled out of a very prestigious high school. You know, I was always looking for just something exciting, something fun to do that wasn't necessarily the best thing to do. Something that would test boundaries and would test how much my parents, not how, I want to say how much they loved me, but I always knew they loved me a lot. But I mean, just how much they could put up with. I think that was one of the big things. And yeah, no, it took me a while to really get into a place where I felt a little bit more confident and comfortable with who I was as a person. And so I was always, I think I was always a big reform. I would fall under peer pressure really quickly. And so I'd never had an actual solid personality of my own. I was always kind of, depending on what friend group I'm at and where I'm at, I would kind of flip flop a little bit until I was about, I'd say 17, 18, when I've kind of decided, you know, heck with that, I'm just gonna do what I want to do and be the person I want to be. So that's who I am. I also have quite serious ADHD. So for me to, so that was just on top of that. It was always busy, always struggling to pay attention when people talk to me and so on, and talking too much as well. So.
Okay. So can you share with us a scenario or two, either Milan or Nathaniel, where you felt that the connection didn't work well?
I think Vilna unmuted, so maybe she wanted to ask something.
No, sorry. I was just moving around.
No, perfect. Yeah, I think I can maybe, just tell a bit of a story of an incident that happened between Milan and I, to maybe just explain a bit of how different we are and how the reactions were. Yeah. So when Milan and I were still in the same school, we rode our bikes to school, and me being the perfectionist and so on, had to be on time for my hockey practice, which I had forgotten my hockey clothes at home. So now I have to zoom on my bike home to get my hockey clothes, get back to school, and be in time for my hockey practice. And that particular day, Milan thought it would be very funny to hide my bicycle. So he hid my bicycle because he was in a lower grade than me, so he came out a bit earlier. And him and I had this massive struggle of me trying to get him to tell me where my bicycle is, because I need to get home to fetch my clothes, etc., etc. And in the end, I shook Milan, and I was like, "Where's my bicycle? Where's my bicycle?" And he just like flicked me and gave me like a shiner. So now I've got a blue eye. I need to find my bicycle. It's this whole spectacle. And when we did get home, my parents were furious at Milan, like very angry at him, because how could he basically hit his sister? And I remember, Milan, maybe you can jump in.
I don't recall the story as well as Nats do, but she did tell me the story again yesterday, so it's just to kind of jog my memory. But at that point, I was kind of a bit confused as to why I was the only one that was in trouble. I was, it was unsettling to me that, I made a joke, I hit my sister's bicycle, haha, funny joke, and it's not my fault she forgot her hockey clothes. It's not my fault she was in a rush, and she ended up shaking me, so I gave her a blue eye or whatnot, and I got in trouble. So for me, it was kind of odd. It was an odd feeling to be the only one that was being, that was in trouble, I'd say, is the, yeah.
So, so in other words, if I hear you correctly, you were both reacting according to your shapes, but only your shape got into trouble.
Yeah, if you want to use that, yeah. If I think we both had our natural reaction, and my natural reaction got me in trouble, and Nat's natural reaction didn't.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I think, yeah, you could say it like that.
Okay. So if we responded according to the values of authenticity and connection and wholeness, how could we have maybe done it differently? Either of you can answer.
I think if I think if you guys were maybe, and I hate to sound like I'm bashing you guys, because I think you guys did you did a pretty good job. I mean, we're still here. So but what I'm trying to say is, I think if you guys understood the fact that the reactions were just normal and nobody did anything out of malicious intent, and then if you guys reacted with that thought in mind, I mean, obviously hitting your sister is not okay ever, but neither is shaking your brother that he feels like he needs to hit you. And so I think if it was, you know, it should have just been a fair, I think a fair, I don't want to say judgment, but you know, the after the conversation should have just been fair. Okay, we understand you both just reacted. Cool stuff. Sorry. Give each other a hug. Love. Goodbye. Or if you decided to be a little bit, you know, more stern about it and say, no, Milan, don't hit your sister. Nat, don't shake your brother. Cool. High five. Thank you. Done. Like, I think, yeah, if there was an understanding of the difference between our personalities, and then the why and how we reacted. That's my
Okay. Thank you so much for giving us that example.
Yeah, I think there's also it is a bit difficult, as Milana said, to not just recall bad or times in which you didn't comply to the values, but I do think that there are instances where you did kind of match our shapes, which for me, for instance, is you assisted me a lot in my research, like projects at school and expo and study methods and stuff like that. And to me, that was extremely helpful. So you were able to see that this is a space where we can connect, because we do share that common trait of wanting to summarize things in colors, or you know, have things a specific way. So for me, I think that is also a part of the coin, that there are instances where you do recognize the shape. Yeah.
Malan, did I talk?
Yeah. Sorry, I think a similar example for me, and I didn't mention this to you, so but it's not bad, so don't worry. When I was, I think I was in the 5th grade, so early, I think it's early teenagers. Anyways, I think you know, 11, 12, somewhere there. I decided it was a brilliant idea to jump off of the roof and onto the trampoline, and I kind of ricocheted into the wall and dislocated my neck and got a heavy concussion and whatnot. And my dad kind of just put me on the couch and said, "Here's some red cool drink, you know, drink up, you'll be fine." And I think at that point, you know, I was a young boy, kind of like trying to emulate how a strong man should be, but then also on the inside, I just wanted somebody to take care of me. And my mom got home and she immediately rushed me to the hospital. And it was, you know, we get in line and she took care of me. And it was, I think for me, that was really good. She understood, besides it being a emergency, of course, but she nurtured me and stayed by my bedside. And, you know, she was there all the way through. And I just thought about it now, like, even though I was a boy and I was always busy and I wanted to be strong and tough, I was still only 11 or 12 or something. And she saw my need for just uh, care. I think for someone to just look after me and care for me. So that was one of the. That's a good one.
I do think that that's a big part of the teenage phase, or at least for me it was, is that you want to be independent and you want to like kind of do your own thing, but you still, it's that knowing that your parent is standing there when they let go of the bicycle when you're learning to ride the bike. Like they're not just walking around, like turning their backs and walking the other way. They're standing there and, if needed, walking kind of as you are learning to ride the bicycle, always being in the in sight, even if it's in the peripheral vision. So I don't know of anyone that at some point in their teenage years didn't want their mom or dad to cradle them, and just hold them and take care of them. Yeah.
But then also, sometimes you want to take risks, even if it's outside of your personality as a teenager. And Nathaniel, you mentioned the situation for me where you took a risk and I didn't respond. I didn't connect and I didn't handle it very well. So
yeah. So I was I can share the story. I'm more than happy to do that. I was in the hostel at high school, and our hostel had this tradition before into schools, the whole hostel would bunk the study period or study time to like get into the spirit, and we all paint our faces and whatever. And this year we all went to Magnolia Dal in Pretoria. The whole hostel went together, and the teacher came in with her megaphone and she was saying, "You're all getting like category 3 punishment now. Like that is, if you basically don't show up for lunch, you will be expelled now. Like that's the end of the road. Like it's quite severe. But now the whole hostel has this category 3 punishment or whatever, demerit. And me being the scared, like, don't walk outside the lines, I phoned my mom and I'm like, Mom, the hostel's going to phone you and tell you that I got a category 3 demerit, and I'm just telling you in advance so you know. And my mom said to me, well, you can be very glad, they were living in Alberton at the time, that Marais Viljoen, that's a high school in Alberton, that their school uniform is also blue, because I'm not even buying you new uniform. You're just coming back. Like you are not done. And I was so scared, petrified, because I was loving my school and it was so and our group of friends then had we were 7 friends, and we had a name for our little group of friends that originated that day, because I walked back to the hostel by myself, which is very, very dangerous, because my mom had told me I need to go and pack my bags. She's coming to fetch me and I'm done. So so that was a instance where I think for me as a child that already does so, so few things outside of the lines, that affirmed something in me, that spontaneous fun and in the moment, like kind of impulsive decisions are bad. Yeah, and that you will always get punished. And in my varsity years, and this is now, it's not as bad as it sounds. I'm not completely crooked now, but in my varsity years, I had to really relearn to have spontaneous fun, and just like whenever there's something new, to not have like have this intense fear that I will be completely reprimanded. And yeah, so for me, that was quite a big thing, and I think it was your own fear that played into your response.
I think that's an important point to make, is as parents, it is important for us to know why we respond the way we do, because we respond probably as was responded to us in our childhood years. And unless we become aware of that, it is definitely a default, So if harsh punishment or never stepping out of the line or using harsh language is part of what you experienced as a child, then you will probably follow that same pattern unless you become aware of it. And I think that is very important to realize. So my whole mission with parenting and finding a different way of parenting actually started in Nathaniel's late teen years, more out of frustration because Malan was not a color in between the lines type of guy. And I realized that no strategy I was trying to use, no fear-based discipline could make any difference, So I think it's important for us as parents to get to know our shapes and to get to realize that we can't force our shape onto our children, because it does have ripple effects. And it is important to discover your own shape, because also when your children are teenagers, you are entering your 40s probably, which is the years you are it's almost like you go into a little bit of a midlife crisis almost. And you are also once again trying to figure out who you are. So my best hope is for parents to realize that early enough. And it's never too late. I think that is the thing I want to sort of say tonight, regardless of how much mistakes we make, it's never ever too late to start over and have a different relationship with our child. But it takes hard work, and it takes commitment, and it takes intention from the parents' side. Because I often find that parents blame their children for things, but actually, the work lies on your side as the parent to work and figure things out.
I think I can attest to that. When I was in my mid-teens, 15, 16, I went through quite a rebellious, even more so than I was before. I started smoking and this, that, and the next thing. And me and my parents weren't really getting along very well. And I remember when I can't remember if it was early 2014 or late 2014, when I was about 17 years old. My mom and I had a severe disagreement that ended up with me kind of punching out a window and being very, aggro and so on. Just to kind of give color to how difficult the relationship was. Not always, but there was definitely times where we really just completely misunderstood each other. And only, I'd say, after, when I was about 18, 19, when you finishing high school and you're at the end of your teenage years, did my mom and I and my relationship kind of get a lot better. And so there was a very long period where we, or not very long, couple of years, where we had a lot of misunderstandings and didn't always see eye to eye on a lot of things. And then when I was about 18, 19, like my mom said, she started reevaluating it a long time ago, but I think I was just too hard-headed. But yeah, where we started seeing each other, and she started understanding me a little bit more, and I could feel more comfortable about just being, I think, coming back to the authentic part about just being myself, and just feeling okay and feeling free to not have to have my 3 layers of defenses and my 2 layers of evasion techniques, kind of to be able to put all of that aside and just connect. And obviously it's not been smooth sailing ever since. I don't think it will ever be. I think that's something that is also probably a good thing to understand is, I mean, my mom and I had a disagreement not too long ago, but we still love each other, and we still, we still have a good relationship. So it's not always smooth sailing, and it's not always that you understand each other and you see eye to eye. But I think if the intention is there to be able to if the intention is there and the other party, or your parent or your child, I'm not a parent, so I can't speak as a parent, but if my mom or my parents, their intention is good and pure, and they just want the best for me, and they just want to love me. If you know that and you can acknowledge that, it's a lot easier to kind of get over things and to not have so many. Sorry, I'm rambling again. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Malan. Okay, I think we can sort of conclude. If there is anybody, Nathaniel, did you quickly want to say something?
Yeah, I just think that there's a lot of grace needed. Yeah, that this, yeah, I'm not even really close to having kids, and this whole conversation scares the hell out of me. So, but I think there needs to be a lot of grace in knowing that I'm not perfect, they are not perfect. It's two imperfect beings trying to communicate with each other. And as Malan said, if the main goal is connection, I think you will have more hits than misses. Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah. Do any of our guests... Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You enjoy talking.
Light bulb, as Nat was saying, that I think another thing that is short thing, is my mom never gave up on trying to connect with me. And I think over the years, it became more and more clear to me that it was important to her to connect to me. And so that just reinforced the feeling of being loved, is by my mom not being like, ugh, this kid is too much, he's running circles around me, I can't deal, pack your bags, like that was never even an option. And I think the fact that, and that's just real.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, any of the participants want to ask any questions or make comments, or just before we conclude?
Karen, I think what I've always appreciated about you is your how important it is for you to be authentic. And to be authentic also means to be vulnerable and to really show where you are at that moment, and whether it's perfect or not, or whether it's a good moment or not. So I think your children must definitely have learned that from you, and also have seen that in you. and maybe they can just reflect on that if there's enough time to maybe just give us not a story or an example, just a reflection on what does it feel like when mom is vulnerable, and what does it do to you as the teenager in that moment. If you want to, guys, if you don't, it's okay.
That's a very, I think that's a very tough one to answer. I think it depends on the vulnerability and the situation, because I think it's very difficult sometimes to see your parents being vulnerable when it's got nothing to do with you, or when it's not nothing to do with you, but more, I mean, I don't know. Can I talk about like?
You can talk
Right.
about what you want to. We are here now.
Sorry. Sorry. When my parents got divorced, it was really difficult for me to see my mom's vulnerability. And that type of vulnerability, I think, is difficult for a child to see. When they're being vulnerable towards you and trying to explain. I think it's a very difficult, just as a child of my shape, let's call it that. It's very difficult for me to see people close to me who are going through a tough time. I don't know if that's the vulnerability we're talking about. So I think I'm on the right track here. But anyways, so yeah. So I think it just depends on when and where and how.
I do think that hindsight is clear sight. So, being an adult now and dealing with adult things and looking back and seeing, oh, that's why this and that, my mom had this reaction, or this was how she was vulnerable in that moment. Now it makes sense. So I think even if the teenager doesn't react as accepting of the vulnerability, I don't think that it can do harm, unless it is in a moment where the child is also vulnerable and you are now taking over the moment and bringing your vulnerability and your pain or whatever as the centerpiece. I think that's a bit different, but I do think that there's a lot of monkey see, monkey do things throughout childhood and growing up. And if I can speak about, I can attest to it because of my mom's relentlessness at seeking the authenticity. I have gained that skill. I have learned to ask myself questions and to kind of try and get to the core of something, because that has been something that my mom valued quite young. So I think that is what you asked, Tangarda.
Last opportunity.
Maybe I just want to say that walking this road with your teenagers, being authentic and working hard to keep connection and trying to show them also what it means like to live with wholeness and having your dark and your light side out in the open. It's not easy. It's a very challenging way of parenting, especially when it comes to teenagers. But it's definitely worth it, as we can hear and see tonight.
I just want to say thank you, Karen. This has given me a lot of hope. What I've learned from you is speak your truth with compassion. I can, we can't change anyone, and that thing about the different shapes is so important. and that one journeys with your children. So, and thank you to your children for sharing such sensitive information. It is really courageous, and I appreciate it because it's given me so much. And yeah, the word grace also resonates with me, and phases. And as I've seen through my nieces and so on, how they have grown up, things develop in phases and they do change. So when one feels panicky as a parent, you can feel rest assured that do what you can today. Speak your truth with compassion, be authentic, let them know how you feel, and how you feel about them in the midst of their struggling and their mistakes and everything. It's a journey, and we do it with grace. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Vilna. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to say thank you to my son Malan, who is here all the way from Cambodia. I have literally seen him, physically touched him 3 years ago. That's tough. That's tough to maintain connection and to maintain a relationship in, over that distance. I really was surprised that you agreed to this, and I am so thankful and honored that you were willing to share this space with your mom. And you too, Nathaniel, I really appreciate it. And they didn't coerce each other. I didn't ask her to convince him or anything. He was actually the first one to respond to say, Mom, I'm willing to do this.